This is back to the 1970s, and this is what if the Cardinals didn't trade away Steve Carlton? So we talked about the $40 million being a difference with Albert Pujols. My understanding it was like 30 grand back then.
Oh, I
Um,
mean, this
and yeah, I was gonna say they end up trading him to the Phillies for a average pitcher, and he goes on to become one of the best pitchers in MLB history. Helps the Phillies win a World Series. So I think that's a big what if for obviously both the Phillies and the Cardinals and baseball history in general.
Yes, because the Cardinals in the 70s, I think, took a step back. I don't know if they actually even appeared in a World Series in the 70s or maybe not until later in the 70s. But Carlton being quite the, that would have been the bridge from Gibson to, to Carlton or, having those guys there. It did kind of set the wave, though, of that. I forget if that happened. That had to have happened before Kurt Flood, though, correct?
Yeah, so it wasn't free agency. He was technically, I mean, they didn't have free agency back then. I
Right,
want to
but
say
that's
Kurt
kind of
Flood was 73, 74, something like that. So he just held out, didn't show up to camp, spring training, whatever, and he ends up getting traded in the second year of this contract dispute with Cardinals ownership.
right. But it was kind of one of those things of that there was the almost kind of there wasn't the union wasn't quite there yet, I don't believe, or it wasn't quite as strong as it was where there was the idea that there was almost like this collusion amongst owners that nobody really bid after each other's players kind of deal, and the contracts were kind of, there was not that much wiggle room on there. That's kind of my understanding of the times on there.
Yeah, it was
So
basically
it's
if
it's
you
not as it's
were,
almost not even as much about the money as that that was a prideful generation of men, and I think that it becomes more about that, and that's kind of just both sides lost on that.
yeah,
Is
yeah,
how I would look
absolutely.
at it. I don't know if that was necessarily the Reds were such a powerhouse in the 70s that I don't know if the Cardinals were the gap was really that, the close there as far as as far as what the Reds are putting out there. The Reds kind of were dominant. I don't think that would have narrowed the gap to Steve Carlton, but yeah, I mean, but I feel like the instances like that are what set, things in motion to give the players more power.
Yeah, and it was such a common thing back then. I mean, I just finished reading this book about the swinging A's in the 70s, and these guys were always just agitating for a little bit more money and ownership, at least for the A's, and it seems like everywhere else. Teams just didn't want to pay these guys because they had exclusive rights. They didn't have to pay them unless the guy was willing to sit out and, endure hate from fans and fines and all that stuff. So it's just a very, very different era compared to what we're seeing today.
Well, what I would say with that is that I mean, like, it's almost one of those things that it is amazing how, in some cases, grossly underpaid those players were because I feel like that with our lack of entertainment options and the way that people had a closer, where they lived amongst the people a little bit more, they were more of a man of the town kind of thing. So people had this extra attachment. So the fact that you're kind of feeling like a superstar, but you're not really able to do superstar things because there's a couple guys here and there. I mean, it's always one of those weird things with, yes, our contracts getting ridiculous in sports right now, but it's also the idea of going, I'm siding on the billionaires, not the millionaires in this case.
Hmm.
Like the money's there,
Yeah,
for someone to spend, it's not coming from nowhere. And it's almost if we could ever look away, which we can't, then money wouldn't be there, but that's our own problem as fans sometimes.
exactly. And I think baseball fans always want to talk about a salary cap. So these teams can't spend, and I'm sitting here as an A's fan talking about a salary floor and wishing that teams would be forced to spend a certain amount of money.
Right, that's the idea. I mean, give the competitive nature because again, you can have a good business in, be getting lucky. I mean, because the rules of baseball, they do give you ways to play the system that you can, I mean, let's face it, the Astros kind of showed that bottoming it out is the right way to do it. There is a way to tank. In baseball, the tank does work because of the way that you can allocate things. You can trade, the way you can get, the qualifying offers on 1-year contracts of veterans or whatever. You sign them to 1-year contracts, you then make them the qualifying offer, which they never accept, then you get draft compensation and being able to just load up on all these prospects. I mean, there is a way of turning that around, which the Astros have shown. And that's kind of where you can start selling this hope here, where it's like, I look at a team like the Kansas City Royals, where it's like, you look at them, and they almost won back-to-back World Series, where for that one period of time, they weren't scared to spend money because they saw an opportunity to actually do it there. And that's kind of the way I looked at them going into this season, where they were, okay, we just paid Bobby Witt. This is now the time to act, because if you look at the rest of their division, nobody else in there is willing to spend money. So there is this idea that you actually can buy a division title. But for the most part there, other teams do not see business where they can just literally just play in front of empty ballparks and, just have games on TV and, just the revenue sharing there is that you can just always make money just by owning that logo.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I think salary floor is the way to
Salary floor,
go.
give them the idea of doing that, but
Yeah.
like it's that the salary cap argument is that we say, look at what is going on with the Chiefs in football right now. There's a salary cap there, and there's a super team we can't stop. So whether we're worried about the Dodgers might win a bunch of World Series right now because they're doing what they're doing, it's that no, it's that we need more teams that need a challenge. Like I want them to be inspiring people because every team does have the money to do what they are doing. It's just that they want to pocket that money is the difference. And that's what's going on with the Cardinals. They've got rich ownership, but they are electing to line their pockets, not put the product on the field.
Exactly. You're preaching to the choir here.